the magic formula. And the recipe is B, with experience. Whatever it is, let whatever comes up come up. Function appropriately on the physical plane. This breaks I down. Won't follow the recipe. I follow my ideas. But the outcome, not same. Tweaking, narrative, maintains shrunken self. Wrong incantation preserves their selves. Recipe does not use preservatives. I is going to rot. Wrong recipe rots everything. Inside, out. Practice internal recipe to uncover I. So today, I wanted to do the subtlety of real learning. And we had discussed learning a little bit, and Aaron had come up with a good definition, which was a learner is someone who is able to actively empty himself in order to receive the new. That means the learner is receptive, to be willing to be instructed, surrenders to authority, listens, and is a participant. And I've got to say, participant is so important. A passive learner does not receive. A passive learner actually has a wall up there. So you don't have to say anything to be a participant. An active learner is bright, clear, clean, and receives. If there's a vibration or nothing's going in. It's tamasic. So when we talked about the Yoga Sutra 141 with the crystal, the clear crystal, you could see the colored paper underneath. And the Shiva Sutras 1-2 is ignorance of one's real nature, which is a kind of shrunken or limited knowledge, is the cause of bondage. And 3-2, of this limited empirical self, whose nature is the mind, mind-born knowledge is source of bondage. So I create an idea about myself, I lose my subject in the object of this idea. This is now me. And I relate with the world completely based on that. I'm attracted to certain things because of my idea. I'm repulsed by certain things because of my idea. And I cling to the life of this idea as being me. Never going to be me. No matter how hard I try, how good I get, how perfect I look, it's never going to be me because it's just a bunch of letters put together. And it's my idea. So we did, Johannes had come up with learner, and the opposite was snotty, know-it-all. And the negative of learner was stupid. And the positive of snotty, know-it-all was expert. And we had done learning, and learning was learning, receptivity, rigor, taking in. And if you look at it, how many people do you know have no rigor, don't take in, they're not receptive, they don't learn. Opposite is unreceptive, slothful, lazy, remaining ignorant. And the negative of learning is impressionable, easily swayed and taken in. Taken in. And the positive of unreceptive and slothful is maintaining integrity. I know who I am. Yeah, and so does everybody else. The also positive is easy, joyful life. But I wanted to remind us of when we went a few weeks ago about human, the inability to discern underlying foundation, only doing behavior modification. We've already done this. And the opposite was responding respectfully to a situation by listening deeply and learning at that level. Acting appropriately on the physical plane. The positive of inability to discern underlying foundation is getting by on the surface, which frees us from feeling anything. So, everybody knows, you're here right now. Getting by on the surface in this room and in this house and in this garden. So a totality of just over an acre is not easy. It won't work. It doesn't work. And the reality is going out there beyond the acre with an inability to discern underlying foundation doesn't work. Always gets you in trouble. You get to be miserable. You get to keep your idea of who you think you are. And life is not pleasant. Responding respectfully to a situation by listening deeply and learning at that level, the negative of that is experiencing what's under the surface, which isn't always pleasant. But the truth is, who cares? Who cares? It's reality. If it's reality, it's reality. So I wrote this to someone and I adjusted it, so I wanted to read this. Beginners look at surface indicators. Right effort, however, is internal as well as external. When I was in Baba's presence, it had nothing to do with the externals. He taught me the internal practice. If you had watched the two of us together, you wouldn't have seen any surface indication that teaching was happening. But it was. Being around Baba was a great gift. But the greater gift was the practice he taught me. How few knew that it existed. Baba embodied that practice. There was no difference between Baba, the practice, and where the practice led. Shaktipat is the infusion of the Shakti, the vital energy, primal energy, grace, into a person that awakens the Kundalini within. This is a great gift that has to be understood, to be appreciated. It does not come lightly. We have to learn how to surrender so as to allow the Shakti to wash us away. So the Shakti is all that is left. That requires us to understand the interior practice. Then we carry the Shakti within us wherever we go. We are the Shakti. This is why Shaktipat is the initiation, not the practice, and definitely not the goal. Looking at, and we discussed a little bit, two different kinds of learners. You've got the independent learner. And an independent learner still knows and appreciates the teacher. They're proactive, they come with questions, they're delving, they take what they see and learn and reflect, work with it, and come back again with new questions, and they keep digging further and further. The self-taught person doesn't like a teacher, doesn't need a teacher. The self-taught person is prideful and arrogant. And as David had brought up the other day, the quote from Mark Twain, which was, "The self-made man is like a self-laid egg." How's that working for you? So there are a couple of dichotomies, and we're going to go through these quickly that I want to do. Humble, easy. Opposite, humble. Arrogant. Negative of humble. It's easy. Humiliated. And the positive of arrogant? Stands up for self. Next one. Appreciate. Opposite of appreciate.
Belittle.
Devalue. Take for granted. The negative of appreciate. Yeah, it's idolize. Idolize. Yeah, can you see that? Idolize. And the positive of devalue, take for granted. Sees clearly. Yes. So people who don't appreciate what somebody might really appreciate, they think anyone who's appreciating is really just idolizing and missing the point. And they see clearly.
Make Sunday more the museum.
Correct. Next one. Apologetic. Opposite of apologetic.
Justifying, defensive.
No, it's a positive.
It's apologetic in the sense of just always apologizing basically for your existence. Chronically apologetic.
Yeah. You have that. You. Yeah. It just it's the slate clearer. You do that, the slate clearer. It's just like an eraser on the chalkboard. Or what do we, the whiteboard, you have the spray with the eraser. Yeah.
What's the opposite of above reproach or something?
Yeah, valuing self. Positive of apologetic. Respectful. Deferential. Knowing what you're actually working with or dealing with or apologizing for. So I never like, and that's part of my, I flip the surface indicator behavior modification person who says, I'm sorry and thank you. I say, no. One, usually they don't know what they're thanking for. They don't understand it, and they definitely don't know what they're apologizing for. It's a formality. It's a good thing that then gets them the eraser. Yeah.
And they continue doing what.
Yeah, nothing
Just
changes. Nothing changes. Yeah, nothing changes. Exactly.
So good understanding culpability in terms of naming.
Yeah, they do not. There is no culpability for the person who is apologetic like that.
Okay, but the respectful deferential
Is understands their actual actions. So I got a lot of apologies from her, but didn't understand what apologizing for. Didn't feel the impact of what. Yeah, there are no sense of accountability, culpability, ramifications, consequences, none of that. There's none of that. Just want to be off the hook, which is, we're done. I don't operate that way. I think I make that pretty clear. So, You don't get it. Oh well.
I had to realize that I couldn't apologize for what I had done. Because first I wasn't there, and also there's no excuse.
Okay, you can't apologize until you have the remorse. Till you have the remorse. And so with children, when I worked with children, and I worked with 2 children for a pretty long time. They're now adults, but I worked with children. No, I worked with that children over there. That children was Leah over there. That children. Is I will give them the experience of what they did. I needed to give them the experience of what they actually do. You haven't had that yet. Even firing you was not sufficient enough because that was in relation to the actions. You haven't had the action of being completely left out in the cold, completely left to be uncomfortable for long periods of time, inappropriately. You haven't had the experience yet. But that's what it is. You cannot, that's what I did with children. That they learn what they actually do, so it goes back and forth. And they understand the ramifications. Your situation, there is no ramifications for that. They have no clue. When I do it, it's okay. When you do it, it's wrong. That's it. That's what you have. That's what you have. Yeah. Yeah. So the negative of valuing self is remorseless. It's a hard and sad dichotomy, this one. This is a painful dichotomy. Because you see in so many places where the only solution with a person this way is to walk away. Next one. Awestruck. Awestruck. What's the opposite? Unimpressed. Unimpressed. The negative of awestruck.
Caught in, taken in by.
Frozen. Terrified. Terrified. So completely missing the point. I almost want to say, God forbid you should ever meet God. Arjuna with Krishna. And unimpressed, the positive. Able to respond. This also is a sad one because you can't ever then see the reality of something so awesome. There's no, again, appreciation of something that's really awesome. It's devalued. It's shrunken. so that I can respond.
I was thinking keeping your cool,
Keeping your cool
which is kind of interesting opposite of frozen.
and missing the point. Totally. And this one we did on Thursday, which is the last vercotomy I wanted to do, which I really liked, which was the buffet chooser. That's the selective learner. I'm going back for the Caesar salad. No, I don't want the okra. Yeah, so I'm having 10 versions of the Caesar salad, the salads. Buffet chooser. It's a negative, by the way. As a learner, it's a negative. And when you go to a buffet and you only get one thing, why didn't you just do a la carte? You have all these options to take in and be receptive about. Yeah. Opposite. Some of you know it. It's chef's choice. Accepts what's given. And we use that. I used the example of being in Norcia at a Michelin star restaurant, doing the chef's choice from Vespasia. Isn't that it? Vespasia. And oh my God, so worth it. And because the chef had seen us, because we ate there 3 times, he gave each of us different.
It was such a delight for the chef, for the teacher.
Yeah.
I also think, you said Bob would say, I give people what they want.
So someday they'll want what I have to give them. So I just give them the buffet for the same surface indicator forever, hoping they grow up and want something more. What's the positive of the buffet eater? The buffet chooser? No discomfort. No need to change. And the negative of the chef's choice? Have to swallow things you don't want. And there's a tendency to think that I have no agency. No agency because the chef is just, I can't pick what I want to do when I want. And one thing I said was, a little child going to a Michelin star restaurant is not going to be able to grasp what they're sitting with. They're not going to grasp it. So as a learner, they're a child like that. And that's not expected. They have to be educated. Have to be educated. So the Shakti, when somebody comes in here and they don't like it, and they get frozen and terrified, They're desperately working to be unimpressed, devalue it, be arrogant about it, because they don't want any discomfort and they definitely don't want to change. And so they want to tame it, the Shakti, control it, and make it reasonable. The Shakti doesn't play that game. Shakti doesn't care. Shakti's going to do what the Shakti is going to do. And the joke is, no one puts Shakti in a corner. Desperately trying to make the Shakti reasonable. It's not reasonable. It's awesome. It's life itself. It's consciousness. And it's here. It's like palpable. And if you want to make that reasonable, you better not come into this house. Doesn't work. So I wanted to read a couple of things. One for sure that I've read before, but it applies. And it applies to the understanding the subtlety of real learning. And this is from Hasidic Tales, and it was translation and annotation by Rabbi Rami Shapiro. A powerful silence. At the Tish, and that's a meal shared by the Rebbe and his disciples, you can say. At the Tish of most Rebbes, hours pass in heated Torah discussion, punctuated by much dancing and drinking l'chaim. But at the table of Reb Menachem Mendel of Vorki, very little was said, for the Reb's way was the way of silence. At one particular tish, Reb Berish of Biala was in attendance, expecting the verbal exchange common to most Rebs. Reb Berish was soon caught up in the deep silence of this quiet sage. Hours passed, and not a word was spoken. Even the breathing of those assembled fell into silence, and only the buzzing of an occasional fly broke the silence. After they had finished eating, the Reb led the community in Birkat HaMazon, which is the series of prayers recited after the meal. And then they all left for their respective homes, worried that their honored guest was annoyed at the quality of their Rebbe's tish. Several Hasidim approached and asked Reb Berish how he was faring. Reb Berish said, "What a tish the Reb gave. He taught me lessons in Torah I have heard nowhere else. And every one of his challenges tore down my understanding of Torah and rebuilt it from the ground up. But I didn't take his challenge passively. I answered every question he asked of me. The Hasidim smiled and welcomed Reb Berish as one of them. How important is that? I wanted to read, as we have time, just some of it. We'll see. And my pronunciation of names is never going to be okay, so bear with them. This is from Musashi by Yoshikawa. Putting the finishing touches on the single peony he was arranging in an iga vase, Seku Shusei asked Otsu, "What do you think? Is my flower arrangement alive?" Standing just behind him, she said, "You must have studied flower arranging very hard." "Not at all. I'm not a Kyoto nobleman. I've never studied either flower arranging or the tea ceremony under a teacher." "Well, it looks as though you had." "I use the same method with flowers that I use with the sword." Otsu looked surprised. "Can you really arrange flowers the way you use the sword?" "Yes. You see, it's all a matter of spirit. I have no use for rules. Twisting the flowers with your fingertips or choking them at the neck. The point is to have the proper spirit, to be able to make them seem alive, just as they were when they were picked. Look at that. My flower isn't dead." So this master was a swordsman, and he was, during that period of time, people would come and challenge, but this is an old man, and now he only does flower arranging and tea ceremony. He doesn't care about the sword. And so there were two men that had come to the inn that wanted to meet with him and challenge him. And so Otsu had left the master's room, and in had come the chief retainer to meet with the master because he had just come back from seeing these two men. And he says to Otsu, Would you let his lordship know I've come back from my errand? Otsu laughed. That's backwards, isn't it? Why? You're the chief retainer here. I'm only an outsider, called in to play the flute. You're much closer to him than I. Shouldn't you go directly to him rather than through me? I suppose you're right, but here in his lordship's little house, you're special. Anyway, please give him the message. He had no pride. It was clear. So she gave the message. And the master, he comes in, the retainer, and the master says, Are you back already? Yes. I called on them and gave them the letter and the fruit, just as you instructed. Have they gone? No. No sooner had I arrived back here than a messenger came from the inn with a letter. It said that since they'd come to Yagyu, they didn't want to leave without seeing the dojo. If possible, they'd like to come tomorrow. They also said they'd like to meet you and pay their respects. So these two did not get the message. The master says, Impudent boors. Why must they be such a nuisance? Did you explain that Munenori is in Edo, Hyogo in Kumamoto, and that there's no one else around? I did. I despise people like that. Even after I send a messenger to tell them I can't see them, they try to push their way in. And he said, it would appear that they are the sons of someone who was actually had been appropriate. His sons are shiftless as they're said to be. And his name was, one of them was Denshichiro. And the retainer said he didn't impress me. And the master said I'd be surprised if he did. So they go through it, and they said, okay, what do we do? And the master says the best thing would be to appease him in some way. Make him feel he's being treated the way a son of a great house should be treated. So, willing to sop, correct? To soothe, to whatever. Maybe it was a mistake to send a man to see him. Shifting his gaze to Otsu, he continued, I think a woman would be better. Otsu is probably just the right person. All right, she said. Do you want me to go now? No, there's no hurry. Tomorrow morning will do. The master quickly wrote a simple letter of the sort a tea master might compose and handed it to Otsu with a peony like the one he had put in the vase. Give these to him and tell him that you've come in my stead because I have a cold. Let's see what his answer is. The next morning, Otsu went her way. When she arrived at the inn, she saw this young maiden. "Welcome. Are you staying for the night?" "No, I've come from Koyagu, castle, with a message for Yoshioka Denchichuro. He's still here, isn't he? Would you wait a moment, please?" In the brief time Kocha was gone, Otsu created a mild stir from the travelers because she was really pretty, and everyone looked at her. Denchiro and his companions, having drunk until late the night before, had only just risen. When told that a messenger had come from the castle, they assumed it would be the man who had come the day before. The sight of Otsu with her white peony came as a distinct surprise. "Oh, please forgive the room. It's a mess." With abjectly apologetic faces, they straightened their kimonos and sat properly and a little stiffly on their knees. "Please come in, come in." "I've been sent by the Lord of Koyagu Castle," Otsu said, simply placing the letter and the peony before Denshichiro. "Would you be so kind as to read the letter now?" "Ah, yes, this is the letter. Yes, I'll read it." He opened the scroll, which was no more than a foot long, written in thin ink suggestive of the light flavor of tea. It said, "Forgive me for sending my greetings in a letter rather than meeting you in person, but unfortunately I have a slight cold. I think a pure white peony will give you more pleasure than the runny nose of an old man. I send the flower by the hand of a flower, with the hope that you will accept my apology. My ancient body rests outside the everyday world. I hesitate to show my face. Please smile with pity on an old man." Then Chichiro sniffed with contempt and rolled up the letter. "Is that all?" he asked. "No. He also said that although he'd like to have a cup of tea with you, he hesitates to invite you to his house because there is no one there but warriors ignorant of the niceties of tea. Since Munenori is in Edo, he feels that the serving of the tea would be so crude as to bring laughter to the lips of people from the imperial capital. He asked me to beg your pardon and tell you that he hopes to see you on some future occasion." "Ha, ha," exclaimed Denchichiro, putting on a suspicious face. "If I understand you correctly, the master is under the impression that we were looking forward to observing the niceties of the tea ceremony. To tell the truth, being from samurai families, we don't know anything about tea. Our intention was to inquire personally after Sekiishi's health and persuade him to give us a lesson in swordsmanship. He understands that perfectly, of course, but he's spending his old age in retirement and has acquired the habit of expressing many of his thoughts in terms of tea." In obvious disgust, Denchichiro replied, "Well, he hasn't left us any choice but to give up. Please tell him that if we come again, we'd like to see him." He handed the peony back to Otsu. "Don't you like it? He thought it might cheer you up on the road. He said you might hang it in the corner of your palanquin, or if you're on horseback, attach it to your saddle. He meant it to to be a souvenir? Denchichiro lowered his eyes as though insulted. Then, with a sour face, said, "This is ridiculous. You can tell him we have peonies of our own in Kyoto." If that was the way he felt, Otsu decided, there was no point in pressing the gift on him. Promising to deliver his message, she took her leave as delicately as she would have removed the bandage from an open sore. In ill temper, her host barely acknowledged her departure. Once in the hallway, Otsu laughed softly to herself, glanced at the shiny black floor leading to the room where Musashi was staying, and turned in the other direction. Kocha, the maiden, came out of Musashi's room and ran to catch up with her. "Are you leaving already?" "Yes, I've finished what I came to do." "My, that was fast, wasn't it?" Looking down at Otsu's hand, she asked, "Is that a peony?" "I didn't know they bloomed white." "Yes, it's from the castle garden. You can have it if you like." "Oh, please," said Kocha, stretching out her hands. After bidding Otsu goodbye, Kocha went to the servants' quarters and showed everyone the flower. Since no one was inclined to admire it, she went disappointedly back to Musashi's room. Musashi, sitting by the window with his chin in his hands, was gazing in the direction of the castle, thinking hard about his objective, how he could manage first to meet Sekishi Usai, and second to overcome him with his sword. "Do you like flowers?" Kocha asked as she entered. "Flowers?" She showed him the peony. It's nice. Do you like it?" "Yes. It's supposed to be a peony. A white peony." "Is it? Why don't you put it in that vase over there?" "I don't know how to arrange flowers. You do it." "No, you do it. It's better to do it without thinking how it's going to look." "Well, I'll go and get some water," she said, taking the vase out with her. Musashi's eye happened to light on the cut end of the peony stem. His head tilted in surprise, though he couldn't pinpoint what it was that attracted his attention. Casual interest had become intense scrutiny by the time Kochik came back. She put the vase in the alcove and tried sticking the peony in it, but with poor results. "The stem's too long," said Musashi. "Bring it here. I'll cut it. Then, when you stand it up, it'll look natural." Kocha brought the flower over and held it up to him. Before she knew what had happened, she had dropped the flower and burst into tears. Small wonder, for in that split second Musashi had whipped out his short sword, uttered a vigorous cry, slashed through the stem between her hands, and resheathed his sword. To Kocha, the glint of steel and the sound of the sword snapping back into its scabbard seemed simultaneous. Making no attempt to comfort the terrified girl, Musashi picked up the piece of stem he had cut off and began comparing one end of it with the other. He seemed completely absorbed. Finally, taking notice of her distraught state, he apologized and patted her on the head. Once he had coaxed her out of tears, he said, "Do you know who cut the flower?" "No, it was given to me." "By whom?" "A person from the castle." "One of the samurai?" "No, it was a young woman." Then you think the flower came from the castle?" "Yes, she said it did." I'm sorry I scared you. I'll buy you some cakes. Said, put it in the vase and do that. Musashi then was far more fascinated by the 8-inch piece of stem than the flower in the alcove. He was sure the first cut had not been made with either scissors or a knife. Since peony stems are lithe and supple, the cut could only have been made with a sword, and only a very determined stroke would have made a clean slice. Whoever had done it was no ordinary person, although he himself had tried to duplicate the cut with his own sword. Upon comparing both ends, he was immediately aware that his own cut was by far the inferior one. It was like the difference between a Buddhist statue carved by an expert and one made by a craftsman of average skill. He asked himself, what could it mean? If a samurai working the castle garden can make a cut like this, then the standards of the house of Yagu must be even higher than I thought. His confidence suddenly deserted him. I'm nowhere near ready yet. Gradually, however, he recovered from this feeling. In any event, the Yagu people are worthy opponents. If I should lose, I can fall at their feet and accept defeat with good grace. I've already decided I'm willing to face anything, even death. Sitting and mustering up his courage, he felt himself grow warmer. But how was he to go about it? Even if a student arrived at his doorstep with a proper introduction, it seemed unlikely the Sekayushe would agree to a match. And there he was. When she arrived, Otsu arrived back in the castle. She went to the master. He laughed and said, so they were angry. Fine, let them be angry. There's nothing they can do about it. After a moment, he seemed to remember something else. Did you throw the peony away? He asked. She explained that she had given it to the maid at the inn, and he nodded his approval. Did the Yoshioka boy take the peony in his hand and look at it? He asked. Yes, when he read the letter. And he just handed it back to me. He didn't look at the stem? Not that I noticed. He didn't examine it or say anything about it? No. It's just as well that I refused to meet him. He's not worthy meeting. The house of Yoshiko might just as well have ended with Kempo. What happened?
see that what they wanted, evidence of what they wanted, was in the peony. And
It was in the cut
in the
of,
cut.
of
Yeah,
the stem.
cut of the stem, that's right. And Musashi could see.
He saw it and freaked and saw how little he knew. So he could recognize, appreciate, awestruck, understand the
Expertise and skill.
the spirit,
Mastery.
mastery. No different than the Tish.
Because you're in a place, I think, in terms of the words being applied, expertise, so to speak, doesn't cut it here.
No, literally.
This is pure mastery.
And that everything the master does
Everything.
expresses that
Expresses.
mastery.
It doesn't matter whether you're making cookies, tea ceremony, walking around. Doesn't matter.
And the Yashoka boys were looking for a lesson, and they got a lesson that
They didn't even know that they got a
didn't see
lesson.
that they were being taught.
They didn't. Yeah, they were so ignorant that so not worth the time of day.
Throw the lesson away.
They threw the lesson away, which then he was relieved that he didn't meet them.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
So they were the babies that were served the Michelin needle.
They were the, yes, exactly. They were the, yes.
It was also a gift that they wouldn't receive.
Exactly. Totally a gift that they were. And the master knew that it was a gift. He knew what he had done. It was a test and a gift. And because of the whole story, he doesn't know that Musashi actually understood. That there was someone who actually saw it. And recognized the mastery. Yeah.
And they even had more than one chance because I don't remember the name of the woman.
Oh,
Said,
oh,
well, wouldn't you want it for your saddle?
yeah.
To
Yeah.
give them another opportunity.
Opportunity to take it, but they were never going to see the cut. They were never going to see. They couldn't see it.
So they really didn't want what he had to offer anyway.
They didn't know what he had to offer. They couldn't even know what he had to offer.
See under the sea. You have to see under the sea.
Because they thought they were going to
Yes.
learn a couple moves.
Yeah, exactly. They were looking for a recipe, a little something. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you have to see under the sea.
And they were also judging the girl who brought the flower.
Yeah, they were judging her.
On her superficial indicators.
Yes.
And when she said, brought a message, they didn't even said goodbye to her. So
Yeah, they didn't. She was, well, they didn't acknowledge the letter. They thought they were insulted. It was all an insult to them. The whole thing was an insult to them. Right? Excuse me? Humiliated. Just like you do? Yeah. Good. Missed the point.
They were prideful and arrogant.
They were prideful and arrogant.
Sort of full of their own ideas about what they wanted and how it
and
was
what they
gonna look.
knew what they wanted and knew what they were supposed to get and be given, and they missed the whole point.
It was all concrete.
Yeah. Oh, so young, so immature, not worth the time, as he says. The subtlety of real learning. Thank you.
Thank you.